Hey guys, this is Hand of Justice, and I'm here to do some best of three. Very excited to do some best of three standard. Been looking at the mono white humans deck and just kind of taken sort of a really deep dive into the sideboard. So for the main deck, just to quickly kind of go over it, the plan is fairly similar to most of the mono white humans decks that you've seen. I did have an added an addition here of Invasion of Gobakhan, which I originally kind of discovered when I was sort of tinkering with the Boros Humans deck. And I think it's a great fit in both decks, but it really adds another layer here to the whole taxing that you can do against control decks. So between Invasion of Gobakhan, Thalia, and Anointed Peacekeeper, you have this kind of really nice trifecta to make everything more expensive and push all the sweepers out of range. So that's kind of a huge thing, I think, especially in game one. Now, I normally play in the best of one space, and I really do enjoy it. But I've actually been really enjoying trying out best of three for ranking up in ladder. And so looking at this list here, starting with the main board, you've got 14 1-drops. You have 4 Wardens of the Inner Sky, 4 Recruitment Officers, 4 Veterans for life gain primarily, and then 2 Hopeful Initiates to kind of help you with some of the tough enchantments or artifacts. Good against like Selesnya enchantments, for example. For your 2-drops, you have 4 copies of Coppercoat Vanguard, which pumps every creature in your deck, 2 copies of Invasion of Gobakhan, and 2 copies of Thalia, both which help against control, and then 3 copies of Kellen Daring Traveler. Such a great value card. And in this deck, you have about a 60% chance when this card attacks to just get another card in your hand, because most of your creatures are mana 3 or less. So I believe this deck runs 36 creatures main board. So 4 of them are Knight Errant of Eos, but you have 32 possible hits. So really good chance of drawing something. Maybe slightly more than 50%. 1 copy of Ossification as kind of a catch-all, sort of like the 4th Brutal Cathar, but also kind of useful because it can't just be, you can't be blown out as easily as you can with Brutal Cathar. And then for the 3-drops, I've got 2 copies of Anointed Peacekeeper to kind of help push those sweepers out of range, 3 copies of Brutal Cathar to just sort of handle any kind of creature threat, and then 4 copies of Adeline, because this card is just so nuts, so powerful, can just win the game by itself. And then you have 4 copies of Knight Errant of Eos to pretty much act as your toolbox to find whatever it is you need to win the game. For the sideboard, quickly before we get to the sideboard, we have 21 sources. Everything can produce white. You've got 3 copies of Mirrex for kind of going long against control, which also make it really easy to cast like Adeline on turn 3. And then you also have 4 copies of Cavern of Souls to name human, and then 2 copies of Iganjo. And since if you do draw both in the same hand, you can play one on turn 2, and then on turn 3, tap the first one for mana, float it, and then play the other one to replace it. And for 1 turn, essentially get 3 mana, which is usually enough. Getting into the sideboard, we have 1 copy of Pithing Needle, which is really good against the control matchups. Naming Jace, you can use it to name other really difficult threats against certain matchups. We have 1 extra copy of Invasion of Gobakhan, 2 more copies of Thalia to go to the full playset, and then an additional 2 copies of Anointed Peacekeeper. So this all gets brought in against control to really, really push those sweepers out of range. You have the 4th copy of Brutal Cathar for the creature matchups, 3 copies of Ossification to be able to go up to the full playset, which is great against creature matchups, also great against planeswalkers. You have 1 copy of Unlicensed Hearse, which is really good at getting rid of like Memory Deluge against blue-white or Esper control. Also really good against like graveyard strategies, anything that's trying to like bring back Atraxa or something like that. And then 4 copies of Knockout Blow, which is just there for the mono red matchup, and probably our most effective tool against it. So I put together kind of a sideboard guide for each specific matchup, and I'm just going to kind of briefly touch on each of them. So here we have, against mono red, what I found the best plan, at least at this point in time, would be, is to take out your Brutal Cathars, all of your Wardens of the Inner Sky, and the Invasions. You kind of try to bring the curve down a little bit, and then take out the cards that you don't really have time to mess around with, like Warden. And then you bring in 4 knockout blows, 2 Thalias, and 3 ossifications, and just go, you know, full control, lots of removal, and then more just taxing with Thalia. Against blue-white control, Esper control, or blue-white mill, you have, you remove your Brutal Cathars and your Lunarch Veterans, as you don't really need the life, and you can bring in 2 copies of Thalia, 2 copies of Anointed Peacekeeper, 1 copy of the Unlicensed Hearse to get rid of their recursion spells, 1 copy of Invasion of Gobakhan, and 1 copy of Pithing Needle, which you use to name either Wandering Emperor or Jace, Perfected Mind. You can also use it on their land, for example, if they have like the 2/3 Restless flying land to shut that down. Against mono black, you take out your Brutal Cathars, your Lunarch Veterans, and 2 of your Initiates, and then you bring in just more removal, ossifications which stick, 2 copies of Thalia, go to the full play set of Peacekeepers, 1 more Invasion of Gobakhan, and the Unlicensed Hearse, which really helps kind of deny them if they're going to be using the graveyard, the 3/3 guys that eat your graveyard and gain life. Plus, there's going to be using a lot of removal, so you can make your Hearse pretty large in that matchup. And then again, here the point is kind of pushing out the mana cost and taxing them so they have a hard time casting like Liliana or Gix's Command. Against Selesnya enchantments, you want to take out 2 Peacekeepers, 2 Invasions, and 1 Recruitment Officer. And then you bring in 3 copies of Ossification, 1 more Brutal Cathar, and Pithing Needle for their Weaver, which they'll typically use to get like double the effect off their own Ossification, etc. So yeah, just bring in more removal there. Against the Mirror Mono-White Humans, or Boros Convoke, or Boros Humans, looking at taking out the Invasions and the Peacekeepers, and then just kind of lowering the curve a little bit and just bringing in more removal, so 3 ossifications and another Brutal Cathar, since mostly the fight there is about Brutal Cathar and who controls the most. Against Esper Legends and Esper Midrange, we take out some of our 1-drops, the 4 Officers and 4 Lunarch Veterans, and then we bring in just more hard-hitting removal. 3 Ossifications, 1 Brutal Cathar, 2 Peacekeepers, just to slow down like their Virtue of Loyalty, 1 more Invasion of Gobakhan, and Thalia. Again, all of that taxing kind of going into keeping them off of Rafine, keeping them off of Shieldred, keeping them off of the large version of Virtue of Loyalty. Against Rakdos Control, we bring out Brutal Cathar just because it doesn't stick, and Lunarch Veteran since we don't really need the life, and then we bring in Thalia, Invasion, Peacekeeper, the Unlicensed Hearse, and 1 Ossification. And would bring in more, but it's kind of, we need to have enough creatures to kind of get it done, so it's sort of a delicate balance of how many Ossifications you want. And sort of the thought here is that with the Thalias, the Invasions, the Peacekeepers, you're pushing out all of their sweepers as far as you can. Against Golgari Midrange, we bring out the Brutal Cathars, the Lunarch Veterans, the Initiates, and an Officer. So we're losing a lot of 1-drops here, but we're kind of upgrading them for sort of more quality, and just, again, pushing out threats. Here we bring in 3 Ossifications, 2 Thalias, 2 Peacekeepers, 1 Invasion of Gobakhan, 1 of the Unlicensed Hearse, and the Needle. And you use the Needle for either their Cottages or Liliana. So that's kind of the sideboard guide. If you want to refer to this video, I'm going to be trying to do a couple more videos here with mono white humans, as I really do love this deck, and really excited to get into the best of 3 space a little bit. So hope you guys like it, and let's get into some matches. By the way, thank you guys for stopping by. If you are a new viewer, thank you so much for checking out my channel. And if you like my content, please consider subscribing. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for your support. It really means the world to me. Thank you so much. Okay, unfortunately we're stuck on a 1-lander, so we are going to go ahead and mulligan. And this looks a lot better. We've got 2 lands, so should hopefully be able to get there. And I think against an unknown opponent here, I'm probably going to throw back the Officer so we can do like 1-drop, 2-drop, like into Goba Khan, and then still have access to Knight Errant of Eos. And as the Officer is a little bit of a later game card, I'm okay throwing that one back. Or the Officer at least has sort of more utility late game, I should say. And yeah, this still gives us the benefit here, like if we're able to get like a 3rd land or another creature, then we can go ahead and set up our Knight Errant of Eos for turn 3. But I like having access to Invasion of Goba Khan because typically I feel like you want to play this on turn 3 after getting down some threats. If you're on the draw, you may not have the luxury of doing so. You might have to play it on turn 2, just depending on what you're up against. So with if this is Dimir, I think we've got time. If it's just if it's like Esper control, then it's possible that they're running temporary lockdowns. And it looks like we're up against Esper Legends. So this is going to be one where we are going to want to play Invasion of Goba Khan a turn early. Just because they could be sitting on Rafine, and we really want to put that out of range. Yeah, and they've got the Rafine ready, so very happy to go ahead and send this out of range, as we could just lose the game if we didn't do that. Also gives us a lot of good information. Like now we know they've got Fairy Mastermind up, and they also have Go for the Throat. So with that in mind, like even though Adeline is like more mana efficient because they're holding Go for the Throat, I'd rather they use that on the Coppercoat Vanguard. So I think here we just push Vanguard and just see what they do. They probably kill the Vanguard. They might even trade with our Initiate. Okay, so now they're sitting on Urtai. And Elizabeth is a little bit unfortunate here because, you know, we can't really avoid the blowout here. So unfortunately, we're just sort of walking into it. We could Invasion here, but they could always kill our guy in response. Then we'd just sort of be sitting on nothing. So kind of have to play this out. They can't counter it, but they can kill it with Go for the Throat. Or Urtai, I suppose. Yeah, so unfortunately we're kind of on the back foot here. We could Invasion again. I don't know that it stacks, so I guess we could find out, but I think we want to run Officer out so we can at least... Actually, I suppose they'll have Schooner, so we won't really have any good blocks anyways. Yeah, so I think once it's exiled, I can't increase the cost, because this just takes a... Okay, I'd have to exile a new card with the Invasion. So we put off the Rafine for a couple turns, but they did get there, unfortunately. Now they'll be able to attack for 3. We could block with Veteran and try to replay it as a flyer, but I kind of just want to get our Knight Errant of Eos out. We're pretty far behind, and yeah, like if we don't draw land there, we're pretty much just done. We're still kind of done here. So I think we definitely want Lunarch to try to get more life going. We could get Veteran to pump, or sorry, Vanguard to pump everything else up. That seems pretty good. Kellen can give us some potential advantage, but we're kind of not in a position to block super well or to be attacking that much. So I think we just want Vanguard here. Okay, yeah, and they've got 3, 5. Yeah, they've got exact lethal there, unfortunately. Okay, so going into board, we're going to go ahead and take out the officers and the Lunarchs. We want to keep the Initiates around in case they've got like Virtue of Loyalty. And then we'll bring in the Ossifications, the Invasion, the Peacekeepers, the Brutal Cathar, and one more copy of Thalia, and that brings us up to the full board. So now we have a lot of ways to tax their hand, and being on the play also gives us the advantage here of using a Peacekeeper on their Rafine before they can drop it. Okay, this hand looks great. We've got 2 lands, a bunch of stuff to do. We'll go ahead and lead out here with our Cavern of Souls, naming Human. And then we've got Peacekeeper on 3 if we can draw the land to go ahead and put their Rafine out of range. So yeah, I like Thalia here, even though we're pushing more damage with Copper Coat, because this kind of slowdowns their like Go for the Throat, or if they had like Virtue of Loyalty. Kind of setting up the tax is really nice. So now we can attack without any fear into potential Virtue of Loyalty since they can't cast it. Okay, and they had the cut down. But yeah, they're, you know, if they don't have the cut down, you still, I think, want to attack in. Like, the 3 damage is worth more than trying to upgrade our Warden. Alright, so unfortunately they did get to go off with their Rafine, but now we get to look upstairs with Peacekeeper and then set up for Brutal Cathar next turn. Yeah, they really want to play Shieldred next turn. We're going to go ahead and put that out of range. They will have Get Lost, which is kind of annoying, but slowing them down on Shieldred is really nice. And then they won't be able to cast Wandering Emperor next turn, so it is safe to go ahead and scry with our Warden. They could use Get Lost. That's definitely something we want. However, yeah, this is tough because it's like if we had an extra mana, we could Brutal Cathar their Rafine, and I think that is pretty important. But Vanguard plus Warden is also pretty sweet, and that definitely allows our Peacekeeper to attack for 4, which is pretty awesome too. So I think I'm going to keep it. But I could certainly see like you scrying that away to see if you could like hit the 4th land. Yeah, taxing the land also like slows down Schooner. All good things. Alright, so we've got full information here. They've got Get Lost. So we'll go ahead and lead out with our Vanguard since we are planning to attack. They can't cast it since they're out of mana here, so can have a decent attack here and put out our Warden. So yeah, now that they're at 4 mana, I think we do want to be a little bit careful and not tap our Peacekeeper. So I think we just get in with Peacekeeper alone, since they can properly they can block our 3/3 no problem. So we're just pushing with Peacekeeper here. And yeah, we are kind of opening the door there by taking out their Schooner. So now we're going to have to use our Brutal Cathar. So they'll be ready to play Shieldred next turn, but we can also just Brutal Cathar that. Yeah, and actually we could have attacked their other Warden last turn, so that was a mistake on my part. Now we do want to be careful and not tap our Brutal Cathar because of their Wandering Emperor. And again, we just do a full send here. Okay, so it looks like they want to do Get Lost instead this turn. But they don't have the mana for it since we've got Ward. And this is really nice because we can, I guess unless they drew like another, they could have drawn like, I guess, they would need like exactly cut down. We could check upstairs and see what they've got. We could also just Brutal Cathar their Dennick, and I think that's also pretty close to game. Yeah, so now they could like get lost our Vanguard. And this way, if we like swing out and they block here, we're still pushing 1, 3, 5. So we could drop them to 2, which is pretty good. Yeah, I think that's how we run it. I guess actually they probably block Thalia here instead then. But I still think it's worth it to push the damage. So I think we just swing out with everything here. Like they get lost our Copper Coat, block the Thalia, take 3, 4, 6, go to 1. And now we can put the other counter, because they're going to want to get rid of Brutal Cathar with their Wandering Emperor. I think we put the other counter on our Warden of the Inner Sky. Do we want Kellen? It's a good value card. I don't know that we want it right now, but it's better than a land, so we'll take it. So here they ward in the Brutal Cathar, get back Shieldred, attack, go to 3. Now if we... So this is like a forced block here. If we attack with these two, we're pushing 1. They block the Brutal Cathar, and then we drop them down to 2. So yeah, let's go ahead and Peacekeeper here to start. Yeah, Deep Cavern Bat. And then I guess we could just force the kill on the Emperor. They would get back their Dennick is the only problem. Is it worth giving them Dennick to kill their Emperor? Yeah, I think I'm okay with it. Well, actually, that might be too much life. So maybe we just get in with Warden of the Inner Sky. And then I think we maybe start setting up the next Warden here. Yeah, Brutal Cathar looks great. Now we can go ahead and put another counter on this one. So they know we've got Brutal Cathar coming, so their bat's not going to do much. And unless they drew something else amazing, that should be enough. Okay, Gix's command is pretty amazing. That was like what they needed. See, unfortunately, we still don't have any good attacks here. Denek represents 4 life. Next turn, Shieldred only represents 2. So I think we still got to take the Denek here. If we tap everything down, they can kill stuff with Emperor, so that's not great. And then I think we have to, either wait for them to make another token or yeah, because if we just tap everything down, they just kill our Warden and then we don't really have a path. Okay, so Bat takes Kellen, but we still have Mirrex, so we can still make a creature to be able to get in. Iganjo is pretty sweet, is we can use this to, could also potentially attack with Peacekeeper here, but I think we want to just make the token and give this thing flying. I don't think we need a second Iganjo. Now we can flip through Cathar.
Strike fast and strike hard.
Yeah, so their attack here makes sense. So now we drop to 5 on our turn. And then we don't quite have enough to send in lethal, so that's a great attack from them. Invasion doesn't really help us here. So I think the play here is we send with all 3 of these, make a token, and we can give this another counter so that it could potentially block Shieldred. They could also just take the hit, which would be something that we need to work out. But because, yeah, we've got Iganjo here, I think that's the play. We could consider not giving them the life and denying it with Iganjo. So they would go to 7. We definitely are running out of time. Otherwise, we like hold it back so we can profitably block Shieldred with our Peacekeeper. Yeah, I think maybe we just hold it back so we can threaten Shieldred. Bit surprised they went for that, although I suppose they've got the life to cover it. So that, I suppose that kind of makes sense. And now we're happy to trade Peacekeeper for their Shieldred. We'll go ahead and put a stop on damage here to make sure that this thing dies. Part of the reason there is like if they had like a removal spell and we didn't wait for damage, then we wouldn't make sure that like if we just use our Iganjo first, they could blow us out. Yeah, so Invasion I think is definitely worth more than having one more Mirrex token here. We could go ahead and get the invasion going so we've got like some protection. They're not really threatening us right now, so I think this is a slightly... Maybe this is a slightly bigger threat. Because if they draw into removal, like, we're just done. Yeah, and unfortunately we didn't have the mana to do both invasions, so... Plus now we gained ourselves up to 5/6, so functionally if they don't block it's kind of the same as if we had just attacked face. And we have the additional benefit of the Light Shield Array. Yeah, so here they realize that they just want to gain some life. And just make another blocker. Let's take another look upstairs and see what they've got going on. Okay, nothing. Yeah, so again, I think now we can just go ahead and attack invasion here since it's kind of the same as hitting them down to 2. Since we're now going to be representing lethal in one attack. And we have another layer of defense with Light Shield Array. We could scry here, since we can functionally block all of their stuff really easily. So I think let's just do that. Yeah, we'll get rid of that land. Yeah, and they're just buying more time here, but we don't want to drop too low here, so I think we're fine just blocking. Could potentially get in here with Kellen, even though like it dies to Preacher, just to try to draw. But I think we're just fine just getting in with just Warden. And again, I don't really want to block the Preacher. If they want to attack, like we would have to blow a Light Shield Array, so that is kind of annoying. I think we're happy to tap everything down here, just to scry. It's a good one to have on top. Here they're just trying to milk us using a Light Shield Array. And this is actually okay if we want to go ahead and block their Preacher. We're essentially blocking Preacher for a turn by doing this. So I think they're just trying to milk a Light Shield Array here, but this is kind of okay still, because now if we do block it, we're pretty happy to be able to have a good block for their Preacher. So I think I'm actually okay with that. So they've got force blocks here in the air, and then we can put in some good damage here on the ground, so I think we just shove with everything. They're definitely holding on for everything here. So yeah, they can stall for quite some time, but eventually should be able to get them. Here, I think we go ahead and take the hit down to 3. It's not ideal, but I don't want to trade Adeline for their Preacher. And again, I'm happy with sending everything here. Because we do have Warden back to block. They're going to have to block with probably Deep Cavern Bat here. We'll have Adeline back as well. We can also replay Kellen if they block with Deep Cavern Bat. Yeah, we'll leave that on top. All right, on to game 3. They definitely stalled for quite a while there. But yeah, Warden and Light Shield Array gives us some of our best inevitability against them. All right, this hand looks great. A little bit slow, but we do have Invasion on 2, which I like. So I think we might want to go Peacekeeper here. Peacekeeper will at least slow down Shieldred if they have it in hand. They do get the benefit of attacking with Preacher, but there's not a lot we can do about that right now, unfortunately. So the other play here is we could go Adeline and then set up Peacekeeper. But I think since we've got Iganjo, let's see. So if we go Peacekeeper next turn, we won't have the mana open to be able to attack. Yeah, I guess we could attack first and then play Adeline. I think we just want to slow down Shieldred here. Okay, they've got Cut Down and Deep Cavern Bat. Slowing down Cut Down is a little bit annoying for them, but it doesn't really do anything right now, so I think let's go ahead and slow down their Deep Cavern Bat. Okay, they hit the land, so it didn't matter. But luckily we've got redundancy for Adeline. Now we can play Warden, and then at least get a scry off before they cut down. Is that enough? Do we want to trade with Preacher? We might just want to trade with Preacher here, honestly. I guess the problem is like they've got the Aganjo, so we can't really trade effectively. So maybe we just go for the Scry. Yeah, we don't need Merrick's. Alright, the very minor silver lining here is we can get Warden out of cut down range, which is at least worth something. So now that we've got a Ganjo, we can actually safely attack. Yeah, we can safely attack here, and then I think I'm going to leave the human back just to help flip Warden up. See if they get one of our creatures here. So yeah, I think we just attack like this and see what they do. So I am happy to trade Peacekeeper for Shieldred or Adeline. Okay, and they went for the double block. So the nice thing is we can Iganjo for 2 and then replay Adeline. And then we can replay and then put the Warden out of range. Okay, and they've got Iganjo mana up, so you got to be a little bit careful. Make sure this is a 4/5. So I think the play here, we could Ossification their Deep Cavern Bat and get Gobakan going, and then use Gobakan to put their cut down, or not cut down, but their Iganjo. Right? Does that work? Non-land. Never mind, that doesn't work. I guess we just get back our Knight Errant of Eos here. Let's do that instead. Okay, so let's go ahead and Knight Errant. Tap Adeline. And 2 of the 1/1s. Actually, I guess let's tap Warden also. Never mind, let's just go for 3. This way if we play a 1-drop, we can still upgrade Warden this turn. Okay, so this is good. We can get Brutal Cathar. I think we want Copper Coat here and Kellen, actually. And then no attack since they've got Iganjo mana up. Okay, that was a nice draw for them. Oh man, that was unfortunate. Whew. Yeah, maybe we should have gone for Blue Cathar there for one of them. That's probably a mistake. Yeah, Cathar would have been so much better. Okay. I guess we just drew into one, which is even better. But so Rafine is still more dangerous than their Deep Cavern Bat here. So if we take their Rafine, we could take the Deep Cavern Bat and the Copper Coat, and then go ahead and give this another counter. But I think just giving them Rafine is super dangerous. I think we want to make sure we get rid of that. And then hopefully they don't have Wandering Emperor, which would suck, because they could get back their Rafine. Oh, did we? We timed out. Oh my god. Oh no. Whew. Well, still getting used to the format. Yeah, take it for what you will. That was a great match. Even though we timed out, I definitely had fun. So thanks guys for watching.